Regina King had always been a force, an undeniable presence in Hollywood with a talent that moved through decades. Her roles were never just performances, they were emotional blueprints of a woman who carried depth, authenticity, and unwavering strength. But something changed. The lights dimmed. The red carpets rolled out without her. Her name was no longer in press tours or movie premieres. She vanished, not in scandal, not in controversy, but in silence. A silence that made people worry. Where did Regina King go? For months, fans speculated. Some assumed she was taking a break. Others feared the worst. But no one could have predicted the depth of heartbreak she was enduring behind the scenes. The truth? Regina had been living through a storm no parent ever wants to imagine. In January 2022, her only son, Ian Alexander Jr., took his own life just days after turning 26. It wasn't just a tragic headline, it was a fracture that changed the course of Regina's life forever. To the public, Ian was the charismatic son always seen hand in hand with his mom at award shows and premieres. A budding music artist, full of creativity and warmth. Regina once called him the greatest love of my life, and anyone who witnessed their bond didn't question that. But behind his easy smile, Ian was waging a quiet war with mental health that even those closest to him didn't fully grasp. One of his final social media posts, filled with chaotic imagery and introspection, hinted at his internal anguish, but it would only be fully understood after his passing. When the news broke, Regina issued a brief, shattering statement. Then she disappeared. Not a trace on social media. No appearances. Not even acknowledgement of professional honors that would typically be cause for celebration. Her grief was not for display. It was personal, raw, and isolating. People close to her began to speak in whispers. Some said she wasn't just grieving, she was broken. The weight of losing her child was unbearable, especially under the scrutiny of fame. There were quiet rumors that Ian had left a letter, one Regina may have discovered herself. Though its contents remain private, those near her say it shifted everything she believed about motherhood, purpose, and even her relationship with the industry she once conquered. And if losing Ian wasn't enough, another devastating blow followed. Just 6 months after her son's death, Regina lost someone else, a cousin she was extremely close to, a woman she often described as a sister. Their bond went back to childhood. They'd weathered the trials of fame together, leaned on each other during personal storms, and celebrated life's milestones side by side. After Ian died, it was this cousin who helped hold Regina together. And then just like that, she was gone too. The cause of the cousin's death was never made public, and perhaps that was intentional. A small measure of privacy in a world that rarely allows it. But insiders say her passing devastated Regina all over again. It removed her last emotional anchor. With that second loss, the isolation became deeper. She didn't want calls, didn't want visitors. She turned down speaking opportunities, tribute appearances, even major offers in film and television. What no one realized was that she wasn't simply hiding, she was seeking a path forward, a way to survive. She left Los Angeles quietly, boarding a private flight arranged by someone in her inner circle, and traveled to a remote spiritual center in the mountains of Mexico. A place known not for celebrity indulgence, but for profound soul work. There for nearly 2 months, Regina lived outside of fame. She didn't go as an actress. She went as a grieving mother, introduced herself only as Regina. And for the first time, she was just another woman trying to breathe through unimaginable loss. At the retreat, Regina participated in silence fasts, grief immersion sessions, and therapeutic rituals rooted in ancestral healing. There were no cameras, no stylists, no scripts, only pain and the quiet work of trying to live with it. A guest who crossed paths with her described how she listened more than she spoke. She journaled obsessively. One journal entry, shared anonymously by a staff member, captured the rawness of her journey. I keep waking up thinking I still have to call Ian. Then I remember. I don't want to be strong. I want to scream. I want to curl up. But if I don't walk through this fire, I'll never feel the sun again. After Mexico, Regina continued her path of healing in Northern California, staying at a private retreat that specializes in trauma recovery and spiritual renewal. There, she sought out grief counselors, immersed herself in nature, and leaned into spiritual practices that had once grounded her. But she wasn't just healing herself. Quietly, she began helping others too. At one point, she started mentoring 2 women at the retreat who had also lost children. There was no press, no performance, just compassion, shared pain, and humanity. When she returned to Los Angeles, it wasn't with fanfare. She attended a private memorial for her son, held exactly 1 year after his death. Only a small group of friends, colleagues, and mental health advocates were present. Regina wore all black, with no makeup and her hair pulled back. And for the first time since Ian's passing, she spoke publicly. Her voice shook, and she admitted she didn't know how she was still standing. She described Ian as her mirror, one now broken. But she didn't stop there. She spoke about the silence around mental health, especially among young Black men. And she made a promise that she would stop pretending to be only what the world expected of her. That from this point forward, she would commit to creating something meaningful, something that could help others survive what she had barely made it through. That promise is already taking shape. Word spread quietly about a foundation in Ian's name. Not just another nonprofit, but a deeply personal mission. It's rumored the organization will focus on youth mental health, creative therapy, and suicide prevention. Regina has already begun meeting with potential partners and advocates behind the scenes. Her return to public life came slowly and cautiously. In June 2023, she appeared at the Essence Black Women in Hollywood Awards. This wasn't a celebration of a new film, it was a tribute to her resilience. When photos from the event surfaced, fans noticed something small but powerful, a tattoo on her wrist with Ian's name and a semicolon, a symbol of survival and choosing to continue. It was a quiet declaration. She hadn't forgotten. She hadn't healed completely, but she was still here. During her speech that night, she dropped a line that caught everyone off guard. She looked at her wrist, then the crowd, and said, "Hollywood gave me a platform, but grief gave me a purpose. And I'm not sure if I want the platform anymore." You could have heard a pin drop. Regina King, once the unstoppable force of Black Hollywood, was thinking of walking away. Backstage, when asked directly if she was retiring from acting, her response was simple but profound. "I've given the world my performances. Now, I just want to give my soul a chance to breathe." Since then, she's turned down nearly every offer, big films, Marvel roles, even passion projects she once spoke about. Her focus has shifted. She's moved out of the spotlight, literally. Now living in a quiet town in Northern California, Regina spends her time mentoring, volunteering, hiking, and continuing her journey through grief. And yet, through all of it, she's creating something. Something not for applause, not for awards, but for healing. The Ian Foundation is quietly taking form, designed to be a space for young Black men to find support, expression, and hope. It will offer programs for grieving parents, art therapy for families in pain, mental health education rooted in community, not shame, a space where others can be heard, seen, and saved. Regina King may never return to the Hollywood machine in the way we once knew. But maybe that's the point. Maybe her greatest role isn't on screen anymore. Maybe it's what she's building now, in silence, with purpose for love. A legacy that speaks not just to her strength, but to the endless depth of her heart.